Well, Shabbat Shalom and welcome to this week's Living Torah, the last one of these before we go to Israel. We'll be taking a few weeks off from the camera as far as from doing this right here. And God willing, going to be doing a lot of video and pictures and things from the internet from Israel. And if you'll go to our website, hopefully, still got a little bit of work to do between now and tomorrow morning when I load everything up. But we've revamped the whole website. I've spent a lot of hours looking at that computer screen, which is not my favorite thing to do. But we do have a whole new look to the website, and there's some things going on there that I hope you catch. We're using a star background, and that is in remembrance of the promises that were given to Abraham, that his descendants would be as the stars of the sky. And so we're kind of bringing out that, and then you'll notice on a lot of our pages we're using a parchment, and so the parchment is representation of the Torah, bringing forth the Torah through the descendants of Abraham. So there is a little bit of planning there that went behind that. You'll also notice on our homepage a little section called the Isaiah 56 Project, and this is something that I've just gotten going. Linking up to a new website that we're going to have, which is isaiahproject.net, and this is going to be to really enable us to do a number of things in the coming months, to bless and to help the people in the land. This is where we're going to put the multimedia. I'm going to be putting a lot of slideshows that I'm going to be building, and videos, interviews, things like this, give you an avenue also to bless Israel. And we're going to be doing, I'm not really sure what all it's going to be, but we'll see as time goes on. Taking it one day at a time right now. We've already had people that have started to email and to send some clothing. We will be taking about 150 pounds of clothes to the town, the settlements, so-called settlements. I've written an article on that on our Isaiah 56 project about the lies and biases, and one of those I dealt with was this thing called settlements. And this is all. When you're looking at this, remember this is just the beginning of it. Okay, so kind of bear with me as we walk through it. So we're going to be taking clothing and some monetary gifts also to the settlements of Itamar and to Habrakah, the Mount of Blessing, and other places up on the specifically this time up in Samaria. So this will give you an idea of kind of the direction that we're going with all of this. So a lot going on. So much is happening. When we just got involved here with this project to send clothing, it has gone crazy, and I'm figuring that as soon as we get a little bit more information on it, right now I'm hold off as far as what you may have already that you want to box up. We're just not sure where to go with all this. Because if we send a shipping container, what's going to be the best thing as far as cost involved, and consider there is going to be a cost in this. So if you want to start setting aside a few dollars there to help out with this, it would be greatly appreciated. So I'll have more to say about that when we're in the land, and I can actually report directly from the land of what is going on, hopefully with some interviews. Today, as I record, in fact, it's coming to the end of a day in Israel called, and I hope I don't slaughter the Hebrew here, Tu B'Shvat, which is the 15th of Shvat, the month of Shabbat, and this is a day of planting trees. It was reported that in Itamar, the town, and you can go to a website called Friends of Itamar, and you can look a little bit more about this specific town up in Samaria. It's about 1,000 people. Well, they're going to double their population, or it's supposed to today, as they were bringing about 1,000 people, politicians and all kinds of folks. Some politicians who had never been to this area of Samaria, which is kind of crazy. But they're going up there planting trees, and so we're going to be able to next week probably see a lot of the places they were planting these trees. And we'll be there a few days late, but maybe we'll plant a couple trees anyway, and kind of take part in that on a little delayed basis. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And of course, as we're preparing to go, the news media, all the rumors that are going on, says the diplomats are requesting gas masks and all these kind of things. Well, kind of a silly news article anyway, because they already have all that stuff. Okay, it's already there. So this is just one of those silly little news things they get out there to do whatever the news media is trying to do. But this is a very interesting time. And of course, there are people out there that would say, is it safe to go to Israel? Why are you going right now? Well, this is, remember, this is the person that was going back during the Intifada. I don't know how many trips during the Intifada, and that was, 2000, 2001, 2002, and I was there when the buses were blowing up. I was there when we were landing the day after the Moment Cafe blew up. I was walking along King George Street, I think it is, where Sbarro Pizzeria used to be. The things that go on there. Is it safe? That's not the right question. I'll never forget talking to one of our guides a number of years ago. And we were in the midst of some of the most difficult time of Israel. And she kind of looked at me a little inquisitive about this thing of, because we were talking to Israelis. We were going into places like Hebron and up on Shiloh, where we were actually having to do a bulletproof bus during those days. And we were talking about this whole thing, and I said, you're really not prepared to live until you're prepared to die. I never forget the look that she gave me. That was quite just a thought that had never crossed her mind. But in Messiah, we have everything should be settled. And, how are we going to be able to live if we're always asking ourselves, is this safe? Is this a safe time to do this or a safe time to do that? Probably more people have been killed slipping in their bathtubs in the United States this year than have been killed in Israel in terrorist attacks. What is safe anyway? The question is not about safety. The question is this the direction that the Almighty is giving you? Because the safest place to be is in the center of His will. I've lived that for a number of years. I stick to it today. So with that, we're going to get into the scriptures, and I was going to mention the Super Bowl. I actually went to bed halfway through it. I was tired. I don't care, and I got into watching what the media is calling maybe the best halftime show ever, which began with Roman gladiators and Madonna coming out dressed as an Egyptian queen or something, or princess or something like that. And everything's fine in America, right? Yeah. Remember, it wasn't the politicians, it wasn't the White House, and it wasn't Congress that put that halftime show together. This was the culture, the culture of America that put that thing together. You must see what America is. Watch the halftime show. That's what America is today. And everything's fine. No problem. Things will just continue to go on as they've always gone. You have to laugh once in a while because I just watched that and I'm going, this is great. This is America. At least they had a couple of country singers up in the front that could sing the national anthem and actually get the words right. I was very impressed that they did that. All right, forget it. Let's go on. I'm in hey, you're going to Israel in a few days. Okay, all right, we're going to get to Matthew, the book of Matthew, chapter 5, and we're going to be in the verse. Okay, we've come to, out of all these weeks we've been doing this, we've come to the verse. that if you are new to Hebraic roots, this is the verse that you know. You may not know anything else. And by the way, because of some antics here recently, I have chosen to never, hopefully not ever again, call myself Messianic. I don't want to be associated with that term. I'm not sure what term I am, but I know that I don't want to be associated with that term, and I'm not going there and talking about that anymore. So if you've been involved in this thing that we're doing at any time, any length of time, you've come to and have probably been able to quote the verse, because this is when you're in those conversations with the people around you that are against Torah and they don't know what you're talking about and they're arguing with you, you go to the verse. And so we're going to go to the verse. And it is, "Don't think that I have come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to complete." Many translations will read it this way: do not think that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. And with that verse, kind of this whole movement hangs upon that verse. And of course, when we talk about the verse to people, a lot of them say, well, he fulfilled the Torah, and so now the Torah is done away with. Well, the next thing that they'll normally do is quote to you something from the prophets. Now, look back at the verse, and we're going to go over some stuff that is probably a little bit elementary to many of you. Maybe we'll give you a little different way to explain this verse to people. Maybe you've quoted the verse, but you don't know really, how to explain it. Okay, so we're going to go back. We're going to just go right on into this thing. He first of all, he makes sure that he ties Torah and prophets together, so that when we're talking to somebody and they say to us, "Well, Messiah came to fulfill the Torah, so now the Torah is done away with," and then they quote to you something from Isaiah or from Jeremiah. Okay? We can't have it both ways. If he has come to destroy and do away with the Torah, then he has also done away with the prophets. They're both fulfilled. So that way of looking at this verse, does not make any sense to me. It doesn't bring forth any truth, and in fact is very contradictory. So he can't be talking about destroying the Torah. Now, interesting enough that we're talking about this, and this week, if we go back to the Torah, if you're doing a 1-year cycle this year, this week is the week that Moses and Aaron went up onto up onto Mount Sinai and received what? The Torah, okay, the 10 words, okay, which is specific to the Torah, the 10 words, the 10 commandments. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. So, this is the week. So this what we're doing today kind of goes along with. Now, as he is finishing up this, what has been called the Beatitudes, which, as we've talked about, is really, he's setting the stage for, okay, this is the way, the manner that I am going to be teaching you. He is setting up, this is how the scribes and Pharisees have been teaching. This is how I am going to teach. So he has differentiated himself from them with these first verses in telling the people the attitude in which he is approaching life in the Torah, and the attitudes that they are going to be approaching. So when he does that, just this is just the timing here for this verse is a God thing, right? The timing for this verse is he comes to the end of these so-called Beatitudes, and then he gives this dissertation about light and salt, and then he says, "Now do not think that I have come to do away with what the scribes and Pharisees are teaching." In fact, he is actually tying himself all the way back to Malachi. the last words spoken some 400 or so years prior to Messiah standing on the hillside in the Galilee, the last words that were spoken were, "Remember the Torah of Moses, my servant, which I enjoined on him at Horeb, laws and rulings for all of Israel." So he's tying itself together, and after he gives these Beatitudes, he's saying, let's remember what Malachi said, to not forget the Torah. And I'm telling you today, don't even think. Okay, still the same concept that Malachi is talking about. He says, remember the Torah of Moses, and then Messiah ties it all together and says, don't even consider for a moment, excuse me, do not allow this thought to come into your mind. Do not entertain for one moment the very thought process that I have come to do away with or destroy anything that was written up until this point. I have not come to destroy it. I have come to bring completion to it. Now, if you go back and remember a few weeks ago, this is quite some time ago, that we discussed the two of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph and the Beit, the first two letters. The Aleph was about Yud He Vav He, about the Father, and the Beit was about the house. And so the two letters together was the house of the Father. And so we related that the Torah, the letters of the Torah, the specific instructions of the Torah, the words of the Torah, they are like the structure of the house. Okay? But we can become so involved in looking at the foundation, the concrete of the foundation, and the 2x4s and the shingles and all of those things, that we forget that the Father built the house for someone to dwell in the house. Recently, we have some friends of ours that bought a house. It's new to them. It's not new, but it's new to them. And prior to them, as they were going through the process of buying the house, you know what we did? We went over there and we had an inspector come in and look at the foundation. And myself and a friend of mine, we got up in the attic and we looked at the things in the attic. We found a leak up in the attic and said, okay, there's something that has to be replaced or has to be repaired. We went through the house and checked things like the furnace and all these various things. And as we went through all that, what were we doing? We were looking at the structure of the house. But then, after they got all their paperwork done, after they had their commitment paper, after they closed on the loan, think about this. This actually comes together very, very well. After they closed on the loan, of course, the next thing we did is we went over and we burned the house down. You weren't expecting that, were you? Well, that's how Christianity has looked at this verse. Is that once the Torah is completely built, the structure of the Torah is finished, that now Messiah comes, the one who is to dwell in the house, and instead of dwelling in and completing the house, he burns the house down so there's no house to live in. That is basic Christian doctrine through the years. Whereas, that's not what they did. It's not what we did. We didn't go over and burn the house down. Instead, we went to the storage room, and their storage rooms, plural, they had a lot of stuff, And we started to take things out of the storage and put them into the house. And just yesterday morning, I went over and took a drill and some hangers and things, and we went over and we put pictures up. We put a mirror up. What are we doing? We are filling up the house. We are bringing the beauty of the house. A house, as someone who was in real estate years ago, a basic house is just a structure. We used to go out and look at, I did a lot of new construction. And one of the things that we did in the new construction projects that I was kind of in charge of, me and another person, is we had the blueprints, okay? And for the really adventurous, they would come and they would look at a blueprint and they'd go, yeah, I like that one. And so, okay, we'll sign a contract, that house, that lot. And then they got to watch it as it was being built. Others couldn't quite grasp that. Most people can't grasp that. So what do? We built a model. And then we got this bright idea that a model just doesn't look right, just as, walls and carpet and ceiling and all this. So we brought in an interior decorator to furnish the house. And people could walk in and they go, so that's what it looks like with a couch. That's what it looks like. That's what that bedroom is going to look like with a bed, This is what the house is going to look like. We did what? We completed the house. Okay? This is no more complicated. What Messiah is talking about right here is no more complicated than the examples that I've given you. And those are good examples to use, by the way, when you have people that are wanting to discuss this whole concept of the Torah being done away with. Okay? It is not that it was done away with, it's completed. One more way to look at this verse, this is an interesting way to look at it, is there's also a Hebrew idiom going on here that I've been told about. And the Hebrew idiom is that to destroy the Torah is to teach it wrong. And to complete the Torah is to teach it right. And so, let's go back and look at the verse. I have not come to teach the Torah and the prophets wrong, as is being done. Hint, hint. I have come to teach it the right way. Another way to look at it. All those ways make perfectly good sense. The one way of looking at this verse that doesn't make sense is that it was destroyed. And he'll go on and further reiterate this concept when he says, yes, indeed, I tell you that until heaven and earth pass away, not so much as a yud or a stroke will pass from the Torah, not until everything that must happen has happened. Now, this ending of this verse, everything that has happened, that must happen, has happened. In other translations, I think it says, not one yud or stroke will pass from the Torah, not until everything that must happen is fulfilled. One other translation, it says, I got to read the whole thing to make this translation make sense. Not so much as a yud or stroke will pass from the Torah, not until they have all been fulfilled. Okay, what is he talking about? Not until the yuds and strokes of the Torah, the jots and tittles, as some would call it. Not until everything has been fulfilled will the Torah pass away. When will that be? When will heaven and earth pass away? Well, I guess if you look at it through, kind of the way we used to look at it, that it's all going to pass away at the rapture or something like that. But the way I look at the scripture today is there's not going, in the end, if we go over to the book of Revelation, these incredible verses at the end of the book that say, I saw a new heaven and new earth. Those words, if we go more to, I think the context of where they would be, it was, I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. a renewed system coming upon, and we know that it's going to be renovated with fire. The earth is going to be renovated. That doesn't mean that it's going to be destroyed. It is going to be renewed back to the way that it was in the beginning. That's an incredible thought right there. If we go to Isaiah, we see that we see in Isaiah chapter 2, we see the heavens and the earth. We see specifically the Torah going forth from Jerusalem. We go to Isaiah chapter 66, which goes right along with these verses I just read out of Revelation, of a renewed heaven, a renewed earth, and us coming before Him from one Shabbat to another, from one Rosh Chodesh, new moon to another. Whoa, wait a minute, the moon is there. And if the moon is there, guess what? The sun must be there. Well, I thought that the sun was passed away. No, it doesn't say that. The book of Revelation does not say that the sun is destroyed. It says there's no real need for it, because Messiah Himself is the light. He is such a light that He even dims the very sun that is out there. Wow, that just gets you into some, that'll make sparklers go off in your head, won't it? So nothing's passed away. I'd like to again have you consider that Torah is eternal, and that Torah has always been, and Torah will always be. And those yuds and strokes, the jots, the tittles, the things that make the Torah what the Torah is, will never go away, because He, the living Torah, will never cease to exist either. I'm not going to go on into that, but consider that the Torah is, when we look at the Torah, it's like this. Some people want to look at the Torah as, well, we have the Constitution of the United States and we have the Torah. The two are not even similar, okay? The Constitution of the United States is a document. It's a document of ink. It's human thoughts, yes. Some feel that it had some divine origin, maybe so. But in the end, it's a document of letters on paper. Torah is not letters on paper. Oh, that's what we see today. But Torah is much, much more than that, even to the point that I sat there this morning and thought, how am I going to describe this? Let's look at the Constitution. The Constitution has rules, Declaration of Independence, all these different documents, they have rules. The Torah has rules. The Torah has instruction. But the Torah was given to us, for the most part, within living parables of people's lives. That's what makes Torah a living document, above the life of any other document, that we are shown how to live. We're shown the plan of redemption. We're shown all of the whole plan that He has for mankind. We see it all lived out in the lives of people. It would have been much easier for us had He just given us a set of rules and regulations. It would be much easier for us to, okay, that's the way you do that, and that's the way you do that. But as we'll see in a moment, the Torah is a document that has life. That's why this series for years has been called Living Torah. And it's not about living the Torah. It's about the living Torah. Because Torah is a life that is of itself. It is the life of Yeshua. It is the person of Yeshua. It has a life that we are to receive far beyond just rules and regulations of how we walk things out. Okay? Get back to that in a moment. Then we have within the verse, or this context of the verse, we have the verse. So whoever disobeys the least of these mitzvot and teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever obeys them and so teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. It doesn't say in heaven, it says the kingdom of heaven, which we're going to see later actually on the next page in a couple of months, when he talks about the kingdom uniting, the kingdom that is in heaven uniting with the kingdom of earth, where the earth system that's destroyed and is replaced with his kingdom. You know, if there's any verse, and how much plainer can you get? I mean, really, how much plainer can you get? What's the context? The context is talking about the Torah and the prophets. He then takes the context and narrows it down a little bit more to the yud and the stroke of the Torah. The very fine, minute details of the Torah. And then he says in that context that whoever disobeys the least of these commandments, the least of these mitzvot, what's the least commandment? As it has been taught for years, and it's not least, the English word here, when we come to words like this, doesn't convey the concept. It is not the least commandment. It is maybe in context of that which is very important in life, is maybe down a little bit. Okay, we would call one of the greater commandments, the greatest commandment would be to love him with all your heart, soul, and strength, to love your neighbor as yourself. Then, maybe somewhere down there would be don't kill, because, you do that, things are kind of over for a lot of people. Down toward the bottom of the list, what the rabbinical teachers have taught through the years is the Torah, and I can't remember, I think it's in Leviticus chapter 18. Excuse me, it's not 18, but in Leviticus somewhere. There is a commandment that talks about if you're walking down a road and you see a bird that has a nest and there are eggs in that nest, that you can take the eggs, don't kill the bird. Because if you kill the bird, the eggs will die also. But if you take the eggs, the bird can have more eggs. Okay? So this is called the least of the commandments. Now, within this, how much clearer can Messiah be? If there is one verse in all of Scripture, from Genesis to Maps, that even if, the Torah is done away with, in the end, I come before him and he says, everything you did was wrong. The Torah, I really did destroy the Torah. I'm still going to hang on this verse. Now, I don't think he's going to do that, but I'm still going to hang on this verse right here. Because what would it be like to go through your whole life, to live your whole life as a believer, but yet you as a believer saw that, that Torah thing is kind of old-fashioned. We don't need those kosher dietary rules anymore. And that Shabbat thing, as I heard the other day, somebody said that they're reading a book that said, if your work week starts on Monday, then you count 7 days and Sunday's your Shabbat. Or I guess if your work week starts on Wednesday, then you count 7 days and, Tuesday's Shabbat. Excuse me? I think we could call that a golden calf. What is a golden calf? A golden calf is changing his word into something that it was not. Got a lot of those. If there's a verse that I hang on to, is this one. What it would be like to go through your whole life, come in before him, and he says, welcome into the kingdom. You had faith in me. Enter into the kingdom. But you're least, because you did not obey, nor did you teach the commandments, the instructions that I gave to you. Now, there's going to be some verses over in chapter 7 of Matthew that will even take it to a new level, okay? But here's the basis of this one. Is there going to be people in the kingdom that said, Torah stuff, I just don't think it's for me. And they taught others to not obey. And they're going to be called least in the kingdom. As opposed to those who first lived their life by faith, because we'll see something in the next verse that will kind of go along with this, but they lived their life by faith in the promises, which the promise is the Messiah. If you go back to Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and you have faith in that verse, then you're living by faith. See, there are people, watch what I say here, don't take me out of context. There are people alive today that have faith in the verse, they just don't know the name of the person in the verse. They're living a life of faith. It just has not been revealed to them at this moment, the name of the person in the verse. Am I talking about Jews? Not necessarily. I may have been talking about Baptists. I may have been talking about Presbyterians. You don't know. Okay? If you have faith in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, maybe it just hasn't been revealed to you yet. There was a time that I understood that, but I didn't know his name. I didn't know exactly who he was or his ways. I'm not going to go any farther into that. Somebody's going to take me out of context on that, probably. Hope not. So, I want to live my life that I walk in and I'm not called the least. Now, I'm not really crazy about, when it says, but whoever obeys him and so teaches will be called great in the kingdom. It may sound a little strange. That verse doesn't really do a lot for me. The verse of being called least in the kingdom is scary. Don't even go there. But to be called great in the way that we look at greatness. Okay, kind of like going back to the Super Bowl last week. Who was the guy that won? Manning, I guess it was. I don't even follow this stuff. I didn't have a team. I don't even have a team anymore, but could care less really. But he's the greatest quarterback of the year, most valuable player, and put him up on a stage and all. Folks, that concept does not excite me at all. To have the greatest ministry on the earth, that concept doesn't excite me. The greatest show on earth, which is what some ministries are trying to do, that doesn't excite me. I don't want to be called least, but in the context of our English language, the subject of great doesn't really do anything. From every commentary and message and sermon that I've ever read on this verse, I don't think we have a clue of what it really means. Because no matter how we look at this verse, we end up putting it into our concept of, there's going to be a guy that's homeless and a guy that's like the vice president. I don't think that's where it's at. Okay? There's something greater. To play on words there. There's something more that probably goes into the realm of what Paul said. Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man the things that Elohim has prepared for us. That's one of those verses. I have a place in my kind of scriptural filing cabinet that your interior scriptural filing cabinet. There are things I put on shelves and think, well, I'll deal with that later on. There's also a file that I have. And if I was to open that file, let's say that file is kind of like one of these slideshows I'm building. It has a title. And the title is, I Can Only Imagine. And if you open it and the song plays while you're opening it would be the song I Can Only Imagine, which many people know is like the most incredible, to me is one of the most incredible songs ever written. I have a file inside of me for things like this. And this verse of being the greatest in the kingdom is one of those I kind of put in that file. And that file is one that I know I can take things out of that file once in a while, but I'm never going to understand what they mean. And you know something? That's okay. Because I have a feeling that when we get into eternity, into the millennium and beyond, little Toy Story lingo there, once we get in the millennium, once we get beyond the millennium, I think, there's going to be some incredible surprises. And those people that think they know what this verse means, they're going to go, I was stupid. So I'm just going to leave that one in that file, if you don't mind. Okay, let's go on. One more verse, and we got to be done. We got to be finished for the day. For I tell you that unless your righteousness is far greater than that of the Torah teachers. I can't stand the way that Stern translated this. I mean, he's right in a way, but he's not right in so many ways here. It would be more of the scribes and Pharisees, okay? The scribes are those that are dealing with the writing of the letters of the Torah, okay? The Pharisees, the Pharisaical system that was controlling the people in that day. That's a real nutshell of those two words. Unless your righteousness is far greater than the ones who are writing out the letters, it's important, writing out the letters on the parchment, and those who are setting the rules for you to live by based upon those letters, unless your righteousness exceeds those, you certainly will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. This verse has been used by people to say, well, unless you have righteousness that is outside of the Torah, you cannot be saved. Excuse me, this is one book, and we just read how Messiah said that the Torah is not done away with, and if you say that and think that and teach that and live that, you're going to be called whatever it is least in the kingdom. So now is he contradicting himself? Has he gone absolutely stark raving mad and he said that everything that he said up till this point is of no good? I don't think so. Okay? What's he saying here? In my humble opinion, the scribes and the Pharisees were about the written Torah. It goes to what we talked about a few weeks ago. I'll give you a good assignment. Okay, I'm going to be off for a few weeks as far as, on this, every single, I don't know what I'm going to be doing when I'm over there. I could be putting up a video no, I'm not putting up a video every day. I could be putting up a number of them. Hope so. Don't know. Don't count, I'll put it out in a little newsletter blurb, whenever there's a new one, new files, new slideshows, whatever, I'll stick it up there on the website. But, for now, I'll give you an assignment. Go to wildbranch.org. Okay. If you need it in a hurry, call Carol. Okay. Call Brad. Brad Scott's website. It's an 8. I looked at it again. It's 8 CDs. It's called Paul. This is not his old series that he did with the DVD of Paul. This is a series he's done on the Agadah and the Halakha. On the walk, the Halakha, the Agadah, the walk and the spirit. Okay? The letter of the Torah and the spirit of the Torah. You want something that will absolutely rearrange you in the next few weeks. That's a series you need to get. Okay? Call Brad. Call Carol. Can't call Brad probably. Call Carol. Go to the website. Order that series. This will explain this verse. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit on it, but this will explain it more. What were the scribes and Pharisees doing? They were looking, let's put it over into the terms of a marriage, which I think Torah is all about. Okay, it's a marriage of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh to his people, his bride called Israel. Now, in the terms of a marriage, we have the marriage contract, in scriptural terms would be called the ketubah. In secular terms, and we're going to relate this to total secular terms right now, we have a marriage license. We've got a couple of weddings I'm supposed to be doing pretty soon. We will have in those weddings a marriage license. Okay? The marriage license is a document. It is a document of the state, whatever state you're in. Here's the terms. The people sign it. The person officiating the service signs it. The witnesses sign it. You're married. Boom. Okay. But now what do? After the wedding, you have a marriage. After the document, you have a life. After the letter, you have the spirit of the letter. What were the scribes and Pharisees doing? They were looking at and focusing only on the letter of the law and developing a system to control people based only on the letters. It had no bearing. Everything was on the letters and nothing was about the spirit of the Torah. And so what Messiah I think was saying, and I use those words hesitantly because just to think that, it's like, God said, to just the concept that we as humans would say that we're speaking for Him, sends chills down my spine. I believe what he's saying to the people is this: unless you go past the letters of the Torah and you put the letters with the Spirit, that will be righteousness. It will be unless you go past, they were teaching, as you'll understand in Brad's series, unless you go past the halakha to the agadah, unless you go past the feet, the walk, and into the heart of the matter, you're not going to make it into the kingdom. Because His kingdom is not just about a set of rules, a set of letters, rules and regulations. It's about a heart of a people. A heart that is guided by those rules and regulations, those letters. It's not about a heart that just says, I'll just be led by the Spirit and do whatever I want, because God told me it's okay to eat pork. I don't think so. It's the meshing of the two together. I mean, Judaism, a lot of Judaism has been over here with the halakha, the letter, the how to walk. Christianity has been all about the Spirit, the Spirit, the Spirit, and Doesn't matter who says what. And that's why you can come up with something goofy like, well, if your day starts on Thursday, you just take Wednesday off as your Shabbat. That's a perfect example of Agadah, the heart, without halakha, the walk. Over on the other side, we'd have something that Judaism has come up with of, I don't even want to get into that one. I can't think of an example right off the top of my head. I got Mea Shearim, ultra-Orthodox community in Mea Shearim, years ago was throwing rocks at ambulances. If somebody was injured on Shabbat, this is only on Shabbat, if somebody was injured on Shabbat and an ambulance was called to come and help the people, some of the people in Mea Shearim were throwing rocks at the ambulance because their halakha was you did not drive on Shabbat under any circumstances, even to save a life. Now don't be too judgmental over there because there's examples on both sides. Okay? Down to the end, don't think. Take that thought captive. Don't think that he has come to abolish the Torah or the prophets. He has not come to destroy the house and burn it down. He has come to move into the house, to furnish the house, to hang the pictures on the wall of the house, to bring beauty and fragrance to the house. If you will continue to pursue these commandments, and when you can, you will teach others to pursue it, there's going to be something in the kingdom that's far beyond mine or your ability to understand today. Oh well, I'm in for surprises. In fact, the next 3 weeks in Israel, it's my 18th trip. I only wish that I could take every one of you, including my wife and my whole family. I wish I could take all of you there with me. Can't be done on this trip. 18's the number of life. I've held off in taking tours and various things because this was my 18th trip. Call me superstitious if you won't. 18's the number of life in Hebrew, and I'm just going to deal with that like it is. I just feel that there are some surprises that he has in store. And interesting enough, because of this ministry, because of your support, your prayers, all of these things, whatever happens in the land happens to us together. Whatever projects and things I come back with in order to be involved in, I can't do it by myself. We're in it together. At least I can't make the decision for you. I would desire for us to be in it together. So, with that, Shavua Tov, have a wonderful, blessed, and prosperous weeks ahead. And a couple extra Shabbat Shaloms in there. I'm going to do as much recording and things as I can. It just depends on what the time is. And we've got some vines to prune. That's the main reason for going over there. At least that's on the surface. The main reason. We'll see beyond that. So, okay, I got to get off of here. Thank you so much for those of you that have that support us on a monthly basis. Those of you who give to this ministry, Toda Rabbah. Thank you so very, very much. And you make this possible. We reach a lot of people, and I can't begin to tell you how much it means. For those of you that have sent money, for those of you that have already sent some clothes and are going to send, let me just say thank you in advance, because I believe that this is a time we're seeing the beginning of the family being reunited. To be a part of that, folks, to be a part of that is maybe the greatest honor that any generation has ever been given. See you next time.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha Shalom.